Hi there, my name is Maisha. I'm a mom and a doula, breastfeeding counselor, childbirth educator, committee member of the New York City Maternal Mortality Board. And thanks so much for coming to my channel. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment about what you think about this and my videos. And I stutter, so don't adjust your Wi-Fi. That's just me. We had a little detour of the planned interview today to answer some asked doula questions, frequently asked questions that I get as a doula. Can you help me write a birth plan? I say, I help you figure out your birth preferences. We often don't know what really is important to us until a birth happens, but what I try and do is explain to you what are the common complications that can happen and what the interventions could be. Do I help you write a birth plan? No, I help you write your birth preferences and I help you figure out what those preferences are. We can't plan a birth and we can't control a birth, but we can get a better understanding of what our choices are and what those choices mean. Next question. Is it true an epidural starts the cascade of interventions to pitocin and a unnecessary cesarean? So this is a highly misunderstood concept. I always say all these things, epidurals, cesareans, pitocins, they are tools, and it depends how they are used. What's really important is that you trust and have good communication with your care provider, meaning your midwife or your obstetrician, so that when decisions are being made, you can trust them and feel confident. Also, when you work with me or another fabulous doula, you can discuss these options as your birth unfolds and what are the pros and cons of choosing them at that time. We don't know what's going to happen until it does. There is no hindsight. There is no human being that could predict how any birth will go. So epidurals are a big tool that can absolutely change the course of your birth. Now, changing the course of a birth is okay. That is a choice. It usually, hopefully, helps take the pain away, either completely or enough. And sometimes that's what we really want. And sometimes that's extremely helpful. Some people experience childbirth contractions as powerful waves of energy that surge through them and they want to experience that. Other people experience contractions as horrible, horrible pain and they prefer to not experience that. And that's a choice that I respect. So what we do within epidural is that we don't want one too early. And what is too early? That's really up to you. Like any drug, we want to use the least amount as possible to hopefully minimize the possible side effects of an epidural. People say, oh, I heard it can make things slow down. It could potentially make your contractions slow down and space out. Most of the time, what we do to balance that out is they will add pitocin, which is a synthetic form of your hormone oxytocin, through an IV and a pump in a controlled amount, which makes your contractions stronger and closer. Does pitocin make contractions hurt more? Yes, it does, except that in this case of an epidural, you're not going to have that extra pain when you have an effective epidural on board. Note I said effective epidural because it may not always work, which is why it's important to have great support and be in a good birth space where you feel confident that we can fix that non-working epidural and make it one that does work. Does it lead to a C-section? So if the contractions, can it lead to a cesarean? There's so many variables in a birth. Yes, there are births where someone got an epidural and then they did pitocin and then eventually a cesarean was eventually called. It doesn't mean that it was a mistake to choose those things at the time. It really depends. What can happen is that if the contractions are too strong and too close and your baby is not tolerating that, then meaning the heart rate dips too much when you're having in response to your contractions and the baby's not really recovering in enough time, we're going to want to try plan C, which is to avoid any more contractions and get the baby out through the cesarean birth. So how do I say it's not causing a C-section? Not in such a straight line. Not in such a straight line. I've had births. Yes, I've had births that a mom chose an epidural, they did pitocin, and a cesarean was the outcome. I've also had, more often than not, that moms had an epidural, pitocin, and didn't have a cesarean birth. So it's not an automatic guarantee that it'll cause that. I've also had moms that did not choose an epidural or pitocin and still had a cesarean as well. Yes, the odds are usually in your favor to avoid a C-section. The less epidurals chosen, the less C-sections happen on the curve. But that doesn't mean in your individual choice, in your individual birth, that avoiding an epidural will guarantee you avoiding a cesarean. And choosing an epidural also does not really guarantee or push you having a cesarean per se. It really depends, I would say, on the care provider, your doula, and you, and then that thing we can't control, which is fate. And even if it does increase the risk of cesarean slightly or a lot, honestly, if mom's in a ton of pain and she wants relief from that pain, it's absolutely okay to make that choice, even if the possible effect is having a cesarean at the end of the day. Pain is a real thing, and if it's not something you want to experience and it's too much for you to cope, it really is okay for you to take pain meds and get out of that space. Breastfeeding, I'm not going to do that breastfeeding question. What was your longest birth? And I'm like, do you really want to know the answer to this question? I've had a handful of births that span the course of 5 days. People ask, was I there the whole time? It depends on the birth. Some of them some of them I took breaks, but even the ones where I took a break, I was there majority of the time. My first, yeah, I'm trying to remember that for the first one that spanned 5 days, I was there the whole time. The second one, I took breaks during the day for a couple hours. I would go home, take a shower, eat, and then come back. So I'd be gone for 3-4 hours, and then I came back for the rest of the 20 hours of that day. And the most recent one, I feel like I was there for 4 out of the 5 days. Like the first day when I saw her early, I left and came back. So I was there for the majority of it. What I learned in those 5-day births is something called prodromal. Prodromal labor is also called false, but I don't like to use that term because it's a very real experience. And what prodromal labor is a labor that's having a bunch of contractions but not having progress, meaning we're not having a bunch of cervical dilation. We're not really seeing changes. So say you get checked, you get a vaginal cervical check and you're 1 to 2 centimeters, and we check you in 10 hours and you're 1 to 2 centimeters, and we check you into another 10 hours and you're 1 to 2 centimeters, having lots of painful contractions. That is prodromal. A prodromal labor is often caused by an asynclitically placed, which means the baby's not quite in an ideal position. That's not the only thing that can cause it. Sometimes we don't know what it is that causes your baby to be prodromal, your birth to be prodromal. So what we do is keep you really hydrated, get you as much rest and comfort as possible, alternating with movement, especially with your legs and your hips and side to side, and using gravity and movement to help that baby click into a more optimal, because they're just tough and they happen. I think in the olden days, we would just let the mom get drunk until things would finally kick in. It can also be a great time for an epidural. Back to the epidural question, sometimes I see epidurals help, honestly. I feel like a well-timed epidural during a prodromal birth can actually help things speed up because mom can sleep and we can get to the point. I think times where there's an epidural taken at a time of extreme distress that does lead to a cesarean, I don't feel like it's the epidural that caused the cesarean per se. It could be that she really needed that epidural because that labor was so challenging and so impossible that she really needed some pain relief. And that's fine that she wanted to have that. So I think it was the tough birth, that the baby was really tight or big or crowded or in a weird position, not allowing the baby to drop down, that was causing such extreme pain and hours and fatigue to go by that she needed help with that epidural. The unexpected, what are some of my favorite parts of this work? One of my favorite things of this work, now that I've seen a lot of, and they're all amazing and beautiful, one of my favorite parts of this work is the grandparents. So not a lot of grandparents are invited into the birth center because I live in NYC and people usually want space from their parents. But after the birth, when I get to go outside of the room and go find those excited grandparents and tell them that their grandbaby is born and alive and well and healthy, and that their son and daughter are doing well and healthy, that's a gem. The joy, the love, the appreciation, the blessings, the hugs. Oh my God, it's the most amazing thing. And I don't really cry at births, but when I get to greet the grandparents and they start crying, I might start crying too. What happens if you have two births at once? Obviously, I can only be in one place at a time. So I would send a colleague to back me up. It's very rare. I literally can't remember the last time I had to send someone to back up one of my births. It's got to be a good 10 years. I cannot remember. I have my special ways. While a lot of it is chance, it's also not taking too many births at a time. If you don't take too many births at a time, the odds are in your favor. They won't go at the same time. If you think about the statistical odds, if two moms do around the same time and live in the same and choose the same doula and into labor at the same time, it's pretty slim. Unless a doula is taking a lot of clients a month, I would say up to 4, because I've spent a lot of time taking 4 a month and they just didn't go at the same time. Knock on wood. You just don't take a ton and they all work themselves. And when I do have a very full month and they go close, I find it fascinating how the gods organize you guys beautifully. There's been plenty of months and weeks where I felt you guys were really close and those births were back to back, but Grace still organized you guys in order. And I got to go to all my births. I had a couple of crunch months this year in 2024 where I had some packed months and you guys all beautifully timed it somehow. I got to go to all of my births. Packed month for me is 3 to 4 in a month. That seems like a packed month. They did come close. As you guys know, who were my clients in 2024, I were at all your births, as well as 2023 and 2022 and 2021. And 2020, I missed one for COVID because I had COVID. And the cool thing about that was that she ended up having a baby who was breech, meaning head up. They didn't allow her birth to go naturally and did a cesarean instead, and I wouldn't have been allowed in the room anyway. It seems like fate really aligned things well, and I'm grateful for the powers that be that hooked it up that the day I got COVID on call was the time that I wasn't going to be allowed into the birth anyways. Things really seem to work out the way they're supposed to in my next question. Tips for going all natural without an epidural. Back in the day, I used to run 5Ks, and a friend who's a doula invited me to run the NYC marathon with her. I said, sure, let's go. And she said the first step of training is deciding why you want to do it. And I paused and thought about it. And I said, you know what? I actually don't really want to do it. I just said, yeah, because it's a thing. And I thought I should try it because everyone who ran the marathon says it's amazing. I was like, I kind of actually don't really care. So I felt the same really important first step as when planning to go without an epidural is get really clear on why do you want to do that? Is it because it seems like a trend? Is it because you're afraid of a cesarean? Is it because you want to be cool because you think it's the right way to give birth? And there's no wrong or right reason to want to do it, but it has to be a solid reason and a grounded reason. Super common. I hear that my mom's telling me they don't want to be tied down to a bed. And I'm telling you, we're not going to tie you down to a bed either way. So that is not, that's not enough of a cause. Like when the pain hits you and you realize there is no tying down, you won't care. The other thing is the pain is really up there. So even though you're not tied to a bed, but you will be stuck in a bed because you will, if you get an epidural, you're numb from your waist down to your toes. So you can't walk, right? Most women choosing epidurals at that point, the pain is so bad, they do not care. The want to be out of pain way supersedes the desire to take a walk and to move around. And also, I can assure you, we could still move you around in the bed to help your progress and to help your birth. I think people who do succeed in not having an epidural, one, you have to not be induced. Because if you're induced, it's just too hard because they're going to use pitocin and the pain's going to be beyond. So if you're not being induced, that's great. So who does well? Who manages it? People who want to do it because they're just, I would say, a naturally minded person who trust themselves, trust their body, trust their birth, and feel really tuned into that and really want to experience it. And who also are willing to accept how hard it is and just allow that to happen. I think I want to talk more about this by itself. That's a whole other thing, and I have to pee. Let's pause. Put my hair back together again. Edit. A little segue. Next question. Oh, my hair. What are we doing? Let's get the hair together. Hair's cute. What is this? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Next question. Next question. Get the mic going. Sorry about the tea clicking. Do I still need a doula if I'm getting an epidural? Yes, 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 and more yes. Why? Okay, so birth is more than just a painful experience. It's an exhausting experience, and it's also filled with different choices and twists and turns. It's great to have someone there to help you navigate those choices. And even with an epidural, we need to still take care of you. And I still need to monitor the heart rate and look how much time is going by and still do things like positioning you in certain ways in the bed to make sure that progress is happening. There's also the time before you get an epidural. There's making sure you get an epidural that works. The epidural can work and then fail, making sure they fix it ASAP, and then encouraging you along and helping you figure out what to do with all these hours, and then helping you push, and then helping you breastfeed afterwards, and talking you through all the twists and turns, and explaining and supporting and giving you guys lots of love and guidance along the way. Next question. Feeling very chill today. In my doula space. Oh, that's my cat. She says hi. What are your questions for a doula that you would like me to answer? Please leave your questions in the comments or anything else you'd like to add to this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. What I do is super hard to explain. At the end of a birth, and as I'm closing with a client, I like to ask them, so how would you explain? And they'll say, oh, it was great to have you and your support was amazing. And I said, how would you explain what it is I did? And they gotta take a long pause. Long pause. I'm like, but what did I do? No, we couldn't have made it without your support. I'm like, but what did I do? What did I do? And that often, I don't know, you were just there. Your dad said I was like a shepherd. I knew when to go to the hospital. I knew when to do this. I knew when to do that. And also just holding him down when his wife was in transition and howling as we do. He just really appreciated that reassurance to know that everything was okay. He's like, I haven't ever seen her like that. And I was like, true, because you've never seen her with a human being coming out of her body. And that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I think that's it for now. I think that was a good use of hair and makeup. I'm gonna press stop and send it to the cloud.